favorite images.
It looks cool.
I need a green screen, but I won't announce that. It'll look a lot better next time.
Okay.
I may have to drop it if it starts
It's cool.
malfunctioning.
I need a green screen, but
we don't need to hear that.
I won't announce that. It'll look a lot better.
Okay, and now we're recording to the cloud. Bill Johnson, it is Black Friday, but you look like you're in a very comfortable place.
Oh, yeah. It's sunny California has got the best weather in the world. I've read a number of articles, and they say that either LA or San Diego has the best weather in the entire world. And they're both basically the same weather. And I've got the LA weather today.
Well, it looks pretty nice. It looks very nice, but oh, what a week it's been since we last met. It has been trying and two really bad. I mean, do you remember how cheerful we were and how hopeful we were last Friday?
Yeah, true.
It seems like, I mean, Black Friday is just the appropriate term for it. But I had this idea for today I think that the most amazing thing really was the Ahmaud Arbery verdict, the McMichael father and son being found guilty in Florida, in Georgia. And I was wondering, how did you feel about that? How have you reacted? Have you?
Well,
Yeah.
When I was growing up, my father told me, he said, Billy, the blacks will never get ahead because as soon as one starts to climb the ladder, all the other blacks try to pull him down and keep him at the bottom. Well, it's the exact opposite now. Whenever a black man is charged, if there's one black man on the jury, he'll hold out for a not guilty verdict and there'll be a hung jury. But white people will do anything to avoid being called racist, and so they will convict at the drop of a hat, whether it's there, whether there's good grounds or not. If the person is white, they will vote to convict, and that's because of the 60 years of anti-white indoctrination that we've had in the schools. And so I think that the jury in this case was 11 jurors were white, I believe.
Right, correct.
And they voted to convict because they did not want to be deemed to be racist. And so it's the exact opposite of what the mainstream media says, is that the whites are a special class. We are a special class. We are a special downtrodden class of our own doing.
My subtitle for this talk was, "Are we aliens in our own country now?"
About 15 years ago, I had a lawyer who worked for me, and he was a similar views to what we had, and he was having a real hard time with just adjusting to society that we lived in. And I said, Ash, we are our guests. We are visitors in this country now. So we need to act like guests because it's no longer our country. And then, and I mentioned that kind of tongue in cheek and passing. And then a couple of years later, he said to me, Mr. Johnson, that really helped me out. I act like I'm a guest in this country and I get along with people better. And it's so sad, but it's true. We are visitors in this country. Now, when I go to a grocery store and I'll notice a black man in the store and he'll see another black man coming his way or a black woman, they'll nod each other and nod and say, hey, I recognize you. We're brothers. And then when I go overseas, go abroad, and I'll be in a foreign country and I'll see another white person there, the same kind of nodding and recognition. But now when I go to a store and I'm the only white person there, and then another white person will show up, we both look the other way. We don't acknowledge each other. And so it's the failure or to acknowledge kinship according to race, or our active rejection of that cognizance of the kinship that's going to do us in.
You really think that white people can't even make? I mean, I don't have that feeling in New Orleans. So, but that's how you feel in Los Angeles. You're saying the weather is perfect, but everything else sucks. Is that what you're telling me?
Oh no, there's a lot of wonderful things about Los Angeles, but it is true that as Los Angeles has become, so will the rest of America be in short order.
Should we all jump off the Malibu cliffs like lemmings? I mean,
well, we're a resilient people. I mean, if you go to YouTube and you look at some of the old photos from the 60s or whatever, like if you, I was watching the Brothers Four. I don't know if you remember them, but they're a folk group, and the Brothers Four was singing Four Strong Winds at UCLA campus, and they panned the audience of the campus in the early 1960s. Beautiful, nicely dressed boys and girls, just had the whole future ahead of them. They were all Americans. And now if you look at UCLA, there are very few of us anymore.
is that supposed to be encouraging? Is that supposed to feel resilient?
Times will change. We will slowly begin to wake up. You know, when you and I first started on this crusade to save our race, for me, 40 some years ago, we were really lone cries in the wilderness, but now there's a lot of people jumping on board. Some of them are still afraid to say the W word, but we're coming on board, and I think there's going to be changes. I mean, for example, I was very pleased. Kyle Rittenhouse was vilified by every media, every mainstream, everything that was be called establishment. He was vilified. And what did Donald Trump do? He invited him to Mar-a-Lago and congratulated him. And what did Congresswoman Green do? She says, I want him to have the Congressional Gold Medal. So there are a few people in high, powerful positions that are beginning to sway the public.
Did it bother you at all in regard to Kyle Rittenhouse that on the weekend and the Monday after he was acquitted, he announced that he supported Black Lives Matter? And was there something just surreal about that to you?
Well, you have to realize that Rittenhouse was 17 and then now he's 18 years old. And 18-year-old people have a lot to grow into, both physically and mentally. And so if you were to poll everybody in his high school, the vast majority of them would support Black Lives Matter. And so, there are aspects of every organization in the world that you can find good things about. So let an 18-year-old boy say what he wants, and just realize that he went through a very difficult time and he came through, successfully.
The best thing I know about Black Lives Matter is they've apparently got a really spectacular house up in the Hollywood Hills these days.
I did that. Yeah, but no, they've done a lot of good things. I've heard Black Lives Matter people say that blacks should not marry whites, and that white people, if a white man marries a black woman, he's just trying to further slavery because he wants to subjugate her. And so many of them are opposed to interracial marriage, and I'm opposed to interracial marriage.
Who have you heard say that? Because I haven't heard that from BLM. I've heard that from other black people, but I've never heard that from BLM.
I don't know. I'm talking off the top of my head. Maybe I'm wrong, but blacks. I'm sure there's some black people that say that. I've heard blacks that are extremists that say it.
I definitely have heard black.
And also,
yes.
I think it's fine. I think it's good that the blacks are so racially conscious that they will support themselves over other things and over what's right. And so if all other races would follow Black Lives Matter's mindset and support their own race, the white race would exist, would have a future. it wouldn't be subject to the genocide that's happening right now.
That's interesting because I've always felt very much that Kevin MacDonald. This is a slightly off subject, but Kevin MacDonald, far from being anti-Semitic, really has said the most wonderful things about Jewish people that anyone, including most Jewish people, have ever said, because he has said that they have taken charge of their own evolution and chosen intelligence and basically self-control and self-determination in a very long-term way. And if there's anything that we need to learn as white people, that's it.
Well, see, what has happened is the Jews, at least the Jews in Europe and some of the far-flung areas outside of the Middle East, they have always been guests or visitors or outsiders in the country in which they live. And this has been thousands of years, 1,500 years in the case of Europe. And so they had that close identity, and that has been inculcated in them and passed down to their children, both intellectually and genetically. Whereas the white people have always lived in their own country, have around their own people. They've always had it to themselves until this most recent generation. So we've not had the recognition of the necessity of supporting our own people, because basically everybody around us was our own people. So we're going to have to change our mindset. We can no longer try to give a helping hand to the entire world at the expense of our own people. We have to wake up and realize that our own people need to be supported. And it's like, going back to this Ahmed Aubrey case, the original prosecuting attorney, a woman by the name of Johnson, she was yanked from the case and was charged criminally for not pursuing the case against the three people who were convicted for murder. And that is unprecedented, is unheard of. The governor or the attorney general said, go after this gal, because she didn't want to prosecute them, because she didn't think that it was right. And so they decided that, she was showing favoritism to white people. And so she was prosecuted. That was unheard of. I was shocked.
Well, speaking of that, I wanted us, if it's okay with you, I'd like to watch the BBC summary of the case. The Big Brother Corporation. I just wanted to, if you'd like to comment, and maybe I'll make some comments, and let's just watch it and try to dissect it, because I feel like it's a very good summary of the most anti-white perspective you can have, which is very strange, since your ancestors and mine come from the United Kingdom, and they've abandoned us. They've abandoned their own. And I mean, even the reporter, this is kind of interesting. Even the reporter from the United Kingdom is not English. And I just think that this is pretty much an incredible event. I'm going to have to get back to the screen where I had the BBC. I am the most technically incompetent person sometimes. It's very sad, but I will get it back. I have to. Yes. Everything is slow. So I take it you're not doing any Black Friday shopping.
At our age, we do no shopping at all. Basically, we wear clothes that we can still fit into until they wear out. That's why all of the advertising companies don't look to our demographics as a source of income.
I like old things too. What can I say? Oh, damn. Scrolling up is a problem. Let me see if I can pick it on BBC. Ahmed Arbery. This is aggravating. I apologize.
Well, that's okay. I mean, we have to realize that in today's society, so many of the people of color hate white people. They've been taught to hate white people, and our own race refuses to acknowledge the importance of their own heritage. So we've got white people going after white people, and you've got non-white people going after non-white people. And
with time, scientists have gone to the ends of the earth to discover the next big thing.
It's not letting me skip the ad. Okay, here.
911 was CJ.
Okay, now I think I've got it. You can keep on talking, but well, no, I think I finally got it. Now am I sharing it yet or not? Not yet.
I can't see it yet, but that's all right.
Okay, hang on. I have to hit the share button. Means I have to get back here. Share screen. I apologize.
I mean, one mantra that I've said years ago is that white people hate white people who like white people, and that's basically what it is. I get the biggest opposition to my positions from my fellow whites.
Okay, can you see it now?
I can, yes.
That's
Okay.
emergency.
I'm not here to kill the stores. There's a black male running down the street.
I hope that in losing Ahmad, people that look like Ahmad will be able to jog, they'll be able to run and not to be worried about being chased with guns and killed.
We actually did not find out that this was the exact location until we bought the house.
When the world moves on, some people don't get to move on. Some people need the family.
You can intentionally and deliberately kill another person in self-defense and not have committed murder. You would be not guilty.
And it's still
Okay, you're a lawyer, currently licensed lawyer, unlike some of us. What is that true?
well, sure. There are many situations where you can end up killing somebody and it's not murder, and self-defense is one of them. State-ordered execution is another one, and abortion is another. So yeah, there are many cases where killing is not murder.
Self-defense if they chased him.
They made their decision to attack Ahmaud Arbery in their driveways because he was a black man.
I know it was racially motivated. How long are we going to have a system that protects those people?
Ahmad was trying to make it home. He was doing everything that he could to make it home.
See, basically, Charles, the media has taken a picture of him from his high school yearbook where he's dressed in a tuxedo and he just looks as sweet and innocent as can be. But he was not jogging. He was going through and ransacking houses. He'd done that in the past. And in fact, there is in the various social media that I read, the general term for a black man often now is called a jogger, because it's to make fun of him because he was not jogging. He used that excuse. He was caught peeking in to the back of some windows in a backyard of a house by a stay-at-home mom, and he says, "Oh, I'm jogging." He was out up to no good, stealing things. And these three people who were convicted of murder, they were defending their neighborhood, and they relied upon a law that I guess was Civil War law to make citizens arrests. And that law was just now repealed in the state of Georgia because of this. But what happened was they were originally not charged for 2 months. They were not charged because the district attorney thought that it was not murder, like that one guy in the ponytail said. But then the dead man was black, and the blacks no longer try to reach up the ladder and pull the person down. They promote themselves, and they more than any time in the past, and we've not caught up with that. So the white man is the guilty one, and it happens over and over again. I mean, this result from the Kyle Rittenhouse case, where the parade, this black man ran through the parade and killed all these beautiful people. They don't say that he was black. In fact, when they do say the black, CNN took a picture of him and lightened him so he didn't look like he was so black. And they got to realize that they hate us. They want to kill us, and we are slow in realizing that. And I don't know if we'll ever wake up. We might, because South Africa knew that they were going to be destroyed, the whites in South Africa, yet the entire white world was down on them and making them, giving up their nuclear weapons, giving up power, and white South Africa and Rhodesia are all dead. And it wasn't because the Mexicans wanted to destroy South Africa. It wasn't because the Koreans wanted to destroy white South Africa. It's because the whites in America and the whites in Europe wanted to destroy white South Africa. It is the self-loathing by the white man that has destroyed, and it is destroying the white race. And until we can change that mindset, boy, it's going to be an uphill battle to survive in the next century.
It is. I mean, it is so true. I mean, did you ever visit Harvard during the 1980s? I know that your years there.
I attended. I went to law school there.
No, but did you go there in the 1980s? I said.
Yeah, I was there in 1979 and 1980.
Okay, but at that time they had not actually started the protests against for divestment, but there was about 4 years when Harvard Yard was set up as Soweto, and the students, some of whose ancestors came in on the Mayflower, were demanding divestment. And that was this huge deal. And it was just sort of mind-boggling. That was the Harvard scene.
Now that's when you were there, right?
Yeah, that's what I was like.
Before we go on, I want to add something. When I was there at Harvard, Nestle was selling baby formula to Africa, and some of the mothers there to save on money, they would dilute the baby formula with more water than they should to make it go farther, and the babies were suffering from malnutrition. So the Harvard people blamed Nestle for the atrocities that were taking place there because of it. And so there was a boycott to boycott Nestle, and there was a big old sign, they marching around saying boycott Nestle. And I didn't have a lot of money as a student, but I went in there and I got a whole big box of Nestle's Crunch. I bought the whole big box, and I bought it, and I walked out there, and I don't even know if I ate that because I didn't like Nestle's Crunch, but I bought a whole big box of like 40 candy bars just to show them that I didn't support what they were doing. That was my activism at Harvard Square.
That's pretty hilarious. Good for you. Let's just go on with this video because it's so interesting.
Ahmaud was easygoing. He didn't like problems with anyone. We laughed a lot. I am Ahmaud's older sister. I like to put emphasis on older because we're a year apart and a lot of people thought we were twins. The family calls him Quez. This is actually the most I've ever called him Ahmaud in my entire life. His middle name is Marquez, and it's for short, and we just call him Quez. We took it really hard when we lost Quez because it was our little baby, basically. You would hate that I called him that, but yesterday there was like a protest going on, and I found myself looking at this picture of my brother's face.
Almost all white.
Yeah, but with regard to what she said, I would certainly hope that my sister would say as nice things about me. So you can expect that from from the relative. You can also expect the BBC to interview a relative, and you wouldn't expect the BBC say, "Oh, he was a bad guy," or the sister to say that. So I don't have a problem with the sister saying nice things about her dead brother.
Oh, I mean, it's natural that when somebody dies, you're going to be emotional about it, but that really isn't. I mean, that's not the question. The question is justice for Ahmaud, as if he were on trial somehow.
Yeah, and also, like you say, they're all white. And then the sister just said, "I've never called him Ahmaud in my entire life. I called him Marcus or Mark because it was Marquise." So they don't even know the guy. They just read what the newspapers printed, and they made a sign, and they're marching to put their own people in jail for the rest of their lives because they were civically minded and they wanted to protect their community from a jogger who was not jogging, but he was casing an area and stealing things. And so it should be justice for America, and justice was not served in that trial.
The only black people appear to be these guys. I guess they're security or something, right?
Yeah.
Bizarre.
It's
just staying off
white self-hatred.
It's not just a hashtag to me. This was actually a person I know.
Who printed up those signs? That's another question. Who do you think printed up those signs? Was that a local group, or do you think they were funded from outside?
Probably the Georgia government probably printed them up. Who knows? I mean, it's so institutional, the anti-white hatred, that it could have come from any sort of establishment organization.
Oh, and I love dearly.
It's just meant to tear at your heart, right?
The trial of 3 men accused of murdering a black man while he was out jogging has begun today in the US state of Georgia. Our North America correspondent Aline Maqbool is in Georgia.
That's the BBC. Aline Amur.
Yeah.
For us now, Aline.
I met the mother of Ahmaud Arbery before the trial started. She said she had never seen that video. Well, one of the most emotional, upsetting moments of the trial today was hearing her anguished cry as she watched that video for the first time. On February the 23rd, 2020, Ahmaud Arbery left his home in Brunswick, Georgia for an afternoon run, but never made it back. On a jog through the quiet neighborhood of Satilla Shores, Ahmaud entered a home under construction and walked around before resuming his run.
Do you do that when you jog?
Also, wasn't he caught putting tools in his back pocket? Yeah, and he was caught with tools in his back pocket. He was not jogging. He was casing a place to rob, and he grabbed the shotgun from the white guy. And how many times have we seen over and over again where blacks beat with their fists white people and kill them? I just read something recently or saw something recently where 3 black women beat to death a homeless man for little reason. And so I would never carry a gun through the neighborhood, but I could see how these 3 white people would be afraid that they would have been beaten to death. It was defense, in my opinion, defense against a man who was casing a place and had a history of committing crimes.
I'm just curious. I mean, have you kept up with it well enough to know if they have any shot at a reversal on appeal, or do you think that's?
Well, of course, they will be trying to do that. But right now, it used to be that the judges in our appellate courts were people of sound reasoning and good judgment. But over the years, through of actions to change the face of America, we've put in people who really don't understand the complexities of our traditional judicial system, and they're also not willing to stand up for what should be is right. They have an agenda, and the agenda is basically anti-white. And this comes from a judiciary that has changed over the last 30 years from judicial appointments of judges on both the Republicans and the Democratic side that are anti-traditional American.
And apparently that's true even, I mean, when you say appointed, I think that Georgia has elected judges, don't they? So this was probably.
It could be, but what'll happen is that when there's a vacancy, or then I think, and the term is not up, he'll be appointed. And
Right.
then basically the judicial elections are pro forma. So someone who's worked up through the system becomes a judge, and then he's part of the establishment.
Interesting point. Can just to digress a moment, do you think that judicial elections should be opened up to freedom of speech?
Oh, that's a good point, because I think the Code of Judicial Conduct really restricts what judges can say when they're campaigning. And the reason behind that is so that judges are supposed to be totally impartial. And if they will make campaign promises saying, oh, I'm going to be tough on crime, that might affect the judge's impartiality. So I can understand why they would do that. However, what I think we should do is that if you are an arbitrator can be anyone, at least in this state, anybody that's over the age of 18. If we had something of a dispute between you and me, we could go to a homeless encampment and we could pick the nearest meth addict out of there and say, will you be our arbitrator? He says, yeah. Then you present the case to him and he rules, and that ruling is final and binding. You cannot appeal it only in very limited cases. And so I think the way the system is now, I think we should move to voluntary judges, voluntary arbitrators, have people be in the voluntary capacity, and no longer have these establishment politicians become judges. I don't like it.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, but that would basically have to be a voluntary jurisdiction then?
Well, I don't know. I mean, why do we have so much discovery that makes litigation, civil litigation and criminal litigation, so expensive? Other countries don't have this civil litigation discovery. So why do we have that in this country? I think we should do away with discovery, and that would really cut back on all this judicial case. That's more civil than criminal. I don't know. There's a move across the country, in California in particular, to have no bail, to let people out, and to not charge them if they're looting, if they're smashing and grabbing. And so if we're going to go to the situation where we're not going to charge them, and then the only people that get charged are the law-abiding people and white people. So let's just do away with the whole judicial system. If we're not going to charge anybody, let's do away with all criminal courts and just let people live on the way they think is right. And then that's one step closer to anarchy, which is what we need to restart.
We're going to have another talk specifically about this, because that's a very interesting position for a lawyer down in Figueroa Street to take.
Well, we cannot continue to slouch towards Gomorrah. We've got to have a dramatic change, and maybe anarchy needs to occur so that we can rebuild.
The government is tending more towards an absolute police state, though, than to anarchy.
That's true.
Travis McMichael and his father Greg grabbed guns, jumped in their truck, and tailed Ahmaud through winding streets. They would later say he looked like a burglary suspect.
911, what's the address of emergency?
I'm not here. It's Killer Shores. There's a black male running down the street.
Roddy Bryan, another neighbor, jumped in his truck and started filming the encounter. Ahmaud was cornered. Travis got out of the truck with a shotgun. There's a scuffle, and then...
Stop right there! End it! Stop! Travis!
Sir, hello, sir.
Travis McMichael shot Ahmaud Arbery once, injuring him, and then shot him twice more. Police statements show he uttered a terrible racial slur as Ahmaud lay dying.
My mom called. She asked me, was I sitting down? And I knew it was some bad news. And she told me, and I immediately thought that she was telling a story to me. This can't be real. This can't be happening to my brother. It couldn't happen to me.
She looks awfully happy, doesn't she? She doesn't really look upset to me.
I felt that it was unreal.
I'm on TV.
Well, also though,
Sadly, murals.
if she actually shows her emotions, that's a good thing. I mean, I don't like these crocodile tears that you see all these victims, relatives cry when it looks to me like they're fake. It's like that that was it that Blake guy that played that detective that shot and killed his wife in LA, and he was Blake. His name was Blake, and he was just crying, "Oh, my wife is dead," da, da, da. And you could tell it was crocodile tears. So the fact that she is being, you say, happy or non-emotional, that's what she was feeling at the moment, and so I credit her for that.
Of unarmed black men who've been shot and killed are now dotted in towns and cities right across this country. But in Ahmaud Arbery's case, he didn't die at the hands of the police, but at the hands of people who believed they had the right to act as an extension of law enforcement and do what they like.
When you're proposing chaos, you're basically saying that everybody should be their own law enforcement, right?
I think that's what we need now. We have anarchy in Los Angeles and in San Francisco and in New York and many different places. It's anarchy right now. We have smash and grab at Nordstrom's that took place today and yesterday. And Louis Vuitton was smash and grab. And you have people who will walk in and
where did that happen? In downtown or?
And no, it happened in the valley, San Fernando Valley. And so we have Walgreens has to close store after store. Walmart has to close store after store in inner city areas because the theft is so high. And so that hurts everybody that lives in the area because of these few people that want to smash and grab. So we have anarchy already in many situations, and we're not prosecuting people, and it's becoming such a problem that we don't even have the capacity to incarcerate or to indict and convict all of this massive crime. We have anarchy on a small scale now, so maybe we should move to a situation where in certain states are doing that. Is it Texas? I don't know, where everyone is you no longer have to have a weapon. You can not only you can have a concealed carry, you can have open carry and everywhere except in the courthouse. And maybe you need to be able to do that in the courthouse too. But maybe we need to move that situation. We need to move back in the Old West. And I remember watching cowboy shows when I was a little kid. You know, the cop would not pull his gun. I mean, the sheriff would not draw until the bad guy drew first, and then the sheriff would always outdraw him and kill the person, and it was done that way. Now you have police. They come to a door, they knock on a door, and little kid opens the door with holding a video game controller, and they shoot him dead. The cops are trigger happy. So if we're living in a situation where cops are trigger happy because they're afraid of the situation, and you have whites are convicted when a black man ever gets killed, maybe we need to have everybody carrying guns all the time and see how it falls into place.
But you live in California, which basically has almost no legal carry, right?
Oh yeah, no, you have to be part of the establishment. You have to be a law enforcement or a politician to be able to have a gun. No one else can. I mean, well, of course you can hunt. To have a concealed weapon permit. But no, if you carried a gun on the street in LA, I think you can carry one that's open, but then you'll get shot by the police.
I'm a criminal defense lawyer, and along with my wife and co-counsel Laura Hogue, we represent Greg McMichael. You can intentionally and deliberately kill another person in self-defense and not have committed murder. You would be not guilty.
And it's still self-defense if they chase him.
That's because they were attempting to execute a citizen's arrest. They weren't chasing him in order to murder him. They were chasing him in order to.
In the world you're talking about, obviously citizen's arrest would be necessary. But if there was would there still be state-run jails, or would people have to, I don't know, set up their own private jails?
Oh, I don't know. I'm just talking off my top of my head when I say want anarchy. We don't have jails now. Everybody's released, and they're all in. We give them tents, and they're all camped around my office building downtown and everywhere. You go to Santa Monica, and you'll go to Redondo Beach. You go all of these, the most expensive beachfront properties in the world, and you have homeless people all over the place, and you have smells of urine and drugs and needles all over the place. So we have that already. You know, it's already the bad guys right on the street. So, you know, how much worse can it get?
Even though there was no evidence Ahmaud committed a crime. And this is shocking. After the shooting, Glenn County Police swarmed the scene, but instead of helping Ahmaud, who was still alive, they comfort the McMichaels.
I know, just breathe, okay?
Yeah, he struck me a few times.
Okay, well, let him look at you. You're okay, sir. I can only imagine. I hope I never have to understand how you feel right now.
Y'all don't put me in cuffs, are you?
No. Why would you need cuffs?
I was never surprised that 13 officers descended upon a location. They never secured the scene. They never preserved evidence, and they never attended the victim because he was never seen as a victim. Black people in Glenn County are rarely seen as the victim. And because you're not seen as the victim, it's hard for you to get justice.
Yeah, I'm sick of listening to that anti-white.
McMichaels and Roddy Bryan were not arrested for 74 days after killing Ahmaud Arbery. It turned out Greg McMichael, a former police officer, had worked for the district attorney's office. It took an outcry from the community and 3 separate district attorneys before the men were arrested and charged.
If it wasn't for the efforts of the people here in this community, I would just be another dead black man. Yep.
What do you think about the significance of that public protest? I mean,
that public protest by the left and by blacks in particular has caused the squeaky wheel to get the grease. The police are considered to be the bad people all the time. Of course, I think police are bad sometimes too. And the white man is the evil villain. And just this whole BBC production is that, oh, whites are vigilantes and they're going against blacks. It is the same type of blather and screed that was popular in right after the Civil War, that caused the Reconstruction era, where the Reconstructionist Republican Party just really oppressed the Southern white male and caused all sorts of problems, and many of them had to leave the area. We are experiencing a similar type of anti-white, anti-police, anti-establishment, white establishment activism by the left and by blacks.
The video doesn't show everything that happened in that day. What happened in that day was a lot of systems colliding to take his life.
what does that mean? A lot of systems collided to take his life?
Well, it's just promoting the narrative that white man bad, black man good. I'm sick of it.
But not everyone sees it that way. Many residents in Satilla Shores view this as an unfortunate tragedy. Lynn and Tom moved into the neighborhood in March.
We actually did not find out that this was the exact location until we bought the house.
look carefully at this and tell me what this is all supposed to boast. What is the agenda here? Because I'm just confused.
We knew it was in the general area, but we didn't realize that our driveway would be seen on every television.
It's one of those neighborhoods, they bring in a tray of cookies when you arrive and introduce themselves, and it's.
Are cookies part of white privilege?
Yeah, well, I think the agenda of this article, or the theme of this article, is white vigilantism. And it's, of course, it's okay to say that whites are vigilantes, whites are seek justice, seek their own self-justice, and they are going after the black man. It's okay to say that. But the BBC, CNN, NBC, ABC, Fox News, they would never have the flip side of this, of where the black man is going after vigilante justice, where the black man will go out and attack and run over innocent kids in this park, in this parade in Wisconsin, in retaliation against the acquittal of Kyle Rittenhouse. And over again, you have in Los Angeles, you had after the Rodney King riots, Los Angeles, they pulled that Reginald Denny out of his truck and beat him senseless. And you see over and over again, blacks engaging in vigilante justice. And that is never brought up by the mainstream media. It's only the white people who cannot defend themselves for fear of being charged, like Kyle Rittenhouse, like Aubrey, and like many of the others. I remember seeing recently how a black man attacked a white man because of a dispute over a parking place. I guess the black man was illegally parking in a handicap zone, and the white guy said, "Don't do that." And so he started beating up on the guy. The white guy pulled out a gun and shot and killed him. And the police refused to convict or charge him. And so then they're uproarious, just like happened. Blacks and whites, mostly whites, say justice for whatever the person was. And the guy was over the stand your ground defense did not work, and he was sentenced to jail for the rest of his life. It happens over and over again. So all of these Second Amendment advocates that want to keep the guns in the hands of everybody, you realize that that's you're looking at jail time if you're a white man with a gun. Because if anything happens, if the victim is non-white, if the victim is black, and no matter what happens, you're going to end up on the losing end.
I didn't intentionally freeze this phrase, but isn't it interesting? You could read this as a command, couldn't you?
Yeah.
This is racially motivated. You must think this is racially motivated.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. We wouldn't know because we don't know what was in the minds of the three men who were involved with this. I know the South has a reputation of that.
Well, if she has that if she thinks the South has that reputation, if she doesn't like the South, then have her go back and be a Yankee again. Have her move up north. They don't need the South.
They obviously just moved down there.
Yeah, I know. The South does not need white women who will say, "Oh, the South has a reputation of being bad against the blacks." We don't. They should, instead of bringing her cookies, they should bring her a U-Haul truck to move out.
Why this happened, you need to understand where we are and the history of this place.
That's a slave ship, right?
Where enslaved people, including Ahmad's ancestors, were held captive long before America was even a country.
Yeah, Georgia was a penal colony, and the white prisoners were sent there. That ship that they just showed, that was probably carrying white prisoners to go to Georgia as a penal colony.
Well, I mean, and isn't it interesting, because once they lost Georgia, that's why that's how Australia got settled. They had to have a new penal colony.
Oh, really? Is that what happened? Yeah. But in any event, I'm sick of all of this. Slavery. The whites enslaved the blacks. I'm sick of that.
The South had a statute that permitted white people to capture black people during the slavery era. After the slavery era, you had the Ku Klux Klan, you had all sorts of citizens.
I think this is just an adorable picture myself.
Groups that felt perfectly authorized to capture.
Are we supposed to hate that baby? His mommy was in the Klan.
Any black person who was outside of the place where they were supposed to be.
Jim, a local lawyer, was one of those who spoke out after the killing of Ahmaud Arbery, writing about it in the local press.
I think we can assume that people have learned to see black men as a threat. White people have learned that.
How did they learn that?
Well, because black people are a threat.
Over time. And that they were therefore justified in doing whatever they needed to do.
Okay, let's stop it right now. I used to tour the country with a black nationalist by the name of Robert Brock. And he was in South Central LA, that's where he lived. And he was a black man. And I would go there without any fear or compunction. And I'd go to his place at nighttime, and black people would come say, "Hey, white boy, what are you doing here? It's dangerous. You could get killed." But white people, in white communities, blacks can come there and shop and go through it. And they're trying to make it like, oh, he comes into a white area and so it's dangerous. Whites cannot go into black areas, but blacks can go into white areas. And this case where they're highlighting this Ahmed that got killed, he was up there doing no good, and they tried to arrest him. In the normal situations, blacks can go through white areas wherever they want and nothing will happen. If whites go to black areas, they get shot and killed. When I was at Columbia, Lionel Hampton was playing the xylophone at a Easter service in Harlem, and I decided to go, and I went by myself. And I was walking from Columbia up to Harlem, and on the streets were closed down, and all these big old fat black ladies had the big old Easter bonnets on, and they're all dressed to the nines, and it really looked cute. And they're all going to the same church. And some of these black ladies says, "White boy, what are you doing coming to Harlem? It's dangerous. You watch out. You watch out." They even knew that it was dangerous for a white man to go in a black area. That's why the blacks, that's why the whites have learned that it's dangerous to be around black people, because it truly can be. Of course, there are many good black people, but there's enough dangerous ones that you got to be careful.
Stop that threat. You can see it in the defense lawyers' arguments.
No one but Ahmaud Arbery made the decision not to stop. He chose to fight.
People would look at Quaylen's face and say that he's an intruder or he was going in to take someone out of home. This is not the Quaylen that I see when I look into his face. Even now, look at his pictures and I look at it like, this is my little brother. How could someone paint this guy to be a bad person?
That trial continues. One of the men that was involved in that killing, the man, in fact, who pulled the trigger, is currently on the stand in a case that many around this country consider a modern day lynching.
As he's running towards you at this moment, what are you thinking?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that he is going to reject.
You could have just let him run away.
Could have and did after I realized that he was not going to talk to me until then.
And you could have stayed in your truck over on Holmes Drive, right?
Could have, yes.
We contacted the family of the McMichaels, but they said they were too anxious to speak before a verdict. The three men will also face a separate hate crimes trial. And while prosecutors chose not to make.
So they're going to get, even though they were found guilty, they're going to go to federal court for a hate crime trial. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, I mean, basically, we have the term witch hunt. Why is it called a witch hunt? Because you had my ancestors, the Puritans in Massachusetts, were rounding up women that they didn't like and accused them of being witches, and ended up burning them at the stake or killing them or drowning them or whatever they wanted to do. And witch hunt is a phrase now used for an unjust attack by the establishment, against individuals that we don't like. And this is what we have now, society. The same type of fervor against these alleged witches are now built up against every white person involved in any sort of situation with a black man. It's a witch hunt against white people, and I'm tired of it.
Make race a central issue. The murder trial, locals say the specter of racism has been a constant presence.
Yeah, see, this is just a witch hunt by the BBC.
I have brought my sons up to understand the history of the place in which they live, but I haven't had to bring my sons up to have a talk with them about what neighborhoods they can run in and where they can go.
That seems a little bit irresponsible to me, doesn't it, to you?
Yeah, it's an agenda. They're saying, oh, black people can't go into white neighborhoods, but our white boys can go into black neighborhoods. That's just an outright lie. I like Aubrey's sister much better than this man because she's telling the truth. He's telling a lie.
They're raised to be fearless. That's the luxury that they have and that I have, that my neighbors don't have.
Yeah, it's all a lie. This is the typical white person who hates white people. And here's a black man who loves his own race. That's what happens. That's why we're dying.
Ahmad was trying to make it home. They refused for him to go home. They said, you're either going to jail or you're going to the grave. Those are your only options out of this neighborhood. Headed to the one Confederate monument here in
What does that have to do with anything?
Glenn County.
It's part of their agenda, part of the witch.
The Daughters of the Confederacy. There's a jury that is 11 white people, 1 black person.
I'm just, again, it's fascinating to have that he's got to be standing in front of this bandaged up Confederate monument. We have no idea what it was a monument to.
Yeah, it's just, it's the death of our empire, of the American empire. It's our death.
And not through a lens of protectionism that exists for white people and has existed for white people in this country.
Madam Foreperson, I understand you have reached a verdict as to each defendant. State of Georgia versus Travis McMichael, count 1, malice murder. We, the jury, find the defendant, Travis McMichael, guilty. Count 2, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant, Greg McMichael, guilty.
Well, there may still be questions about the way the police behaved after this killing, questions about the underlying issues surrounding race in the society that contributed to the killing. But for now, at least, all of those who for months have been calling for justice for Ahmaud Arbery, there's just a huge sense of relief.
To tell you, I never saw this day back in 2020. I never thought this day would come. But God is good. Whereas,
who's that?
I don't. Well, in the back, it's Al Sharpton, but I don't know who she is. But the point is that when Kyle Rittenhouse was found not guilty, they showed how it was unjust, it was evil, the problems with the American judiciary, and so now when they find him guilty, this person guilty, they show all the mob is all pleased and happy. So. It's the establishment wants to go after white people, and that's it. And until we wake up, see, our people, our young kids, they can't even say the W word. They can't even say white. They can't say beautiful white children. They can't say get married and have white children because they've been indoctrinated to that it's unacceptable. If you look at every every ad on the internet, every ad on TV, it shows blacks, it shows interracial couples, whites with blacks, and it's advocating and promoting an agenda. And this BBC article is the same approach. White's bad, black's good.
Going back to that question I put in the title of this section, What's this flag?
Is that an African flag? I don't know. What is it?
It looks to me like the flag of the ANC, the African National Congress.
Yeah, it looks to me that way too.
And look at what she's wearing.
Yeah, that's true. I see it. Yeah.
And you want to know a really weird thing? I wish I had it. I don't have it sitting right by me handy, but there's a new prayer book in the Episcopal Church, which was for a long time, even in this country, known as the Church of England. There's a new hymnal, actually, not a prayer book, a hymnal that has those three colors on it. And it blows my mind because, of course, it's basically a multicultural, i.e. Black hymnal. And it's in all the pews at a church whose main, behind the stained glass window behind the main altar is dedicated to the memory of Leonidas Polk, Confederate general and first Bishop of Louisiana.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you. My mom has always been this lady that took on a lot. So to get to this point, I feel like it will be a part of her that will rest along with my mom. Even though when the world moves on, some people don't get to move on. You know, some people mean the family members. I want the world to know that Ahmaud was deserving of so much more than what happened to him that day. He was a human and we loved him as such. I do want the world to know that Ahmaud is loved.
what you said about the hymnal and the Episcopalian Church, I just read today that the Salvation Army is requesting that in addition to donation, that white people, when they put the money in the pot, they apologize for slavery. So it's just
Is that official? Is that real?
Yeah, well, I read that, so we'll see what kind of contributions they get this Christmas season. But I don't know. We're messed up. You and I are living in very difficult times, and it's, hopefully we'll wake up before we're destroyed.
It's been, it is really surreal. Well, I guess that's just as good a place to stop for the day as any, but unless you feel like looking at one other thing that we could save it for later, or we could do it tonight. Have you seen Mike Lindell's proposed complaint against the 2020 election?
I have not, but I'd like to do that later.
Okay, hey, we will do it later. You have a great weekend, William Daniel Johnson, and we will talk soon. And maybe should we just do Friday as a regular?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Okay. Hey, have a great weekend. Talk to you soon. Good night. From New Orleans and Pasadena.